Welcome into a Wednesday edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kezirian, and alongside professional handicapper Wes Reynolds, and we are going to recap a couple wild outcomes this morning in the W. Look ahead to some night games with the unknown official status of Angel Reese, and also look at the NBA Summer League and tell you the importance of really dissecting it. All that and much more coming up on this show. Wes, good to be with you. It's been a few days here.
Yeah, it has. We did have some matinee action, as you mentioned, in the WNBA. A lot of the kids' days that you see with a lot of the campers and all of that stuff. So that's why you're seeing all these early tips midweek in the WNBA.
Yeah, we're going to have that a few weeks during the summer, which is nice for us out west. Now, I slept in, but we did discuss yesterday on the potential of Caitlin Clark under 17 and a half points. She's finished with 10, 4 of 12 shooting. Stephanie White decided to use her in bursts, 4-minute bursts, things like that, just coming back from that growing injury where she had missed 6 straight games overall. But this was a Fever team that was really kind of dominated from like the early second quarter on and lose in a blowout fashion. Fever just couldn't get a lot going. Now, I found it interesting that they started Ari McDonald, and Stephanie White was asked about it yesterday and alluded that she might, but Lexi Hull back to the bench. So you had more quickness with Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and McDonald, but you didn't have the complete space that you normally get with Hull. And I think McDonald was shown when she doesn't have the ball going through her hands and not running the offense through her, she's not as effective. I think she needs to be off the bench.
I agree with that. And, they tried it because they want to get Caitlin Clark obviously a little bit more off the ball where she doesn't have the burden to try to create her own shots off the dribble and is the sole ball handler at all times. So I understood that philosophy. But, when you're doing that off the ball too, you got to set good screens, which the Fever don't always do. And quite frankly, Caitlin Clark doesn't always come off those screens as quick as she needs to. And maybe that's partially because of coming back from the injury here. But nevertheless, everybody was bad on the Fever today. It wasn't just Clark, wasn't just Boston. It was everybody. And the Valkyries dominate them for the second straight time this year, 80-61. I believe 230 was the final money line at Bet Rivers, and I even saw as high as 275 in the market on the close. So a no doubter from the Golden State Valkyries, and now the Fever have lost 2 in a row at home. Now 1 game below 500 at 9-10, and they got to figure something out because they've been, I think, and maybe the hype was a little bit too much. I think that's probably fair to say in hindsight, but there were better expectations for this team, that this team would be a little bit better, and they have not been. I thought they were slow, not only offensively, but slow on defense. The sequence, though, where Caitlin Clark got blown by Caitlin Chen, who was, I believe, a third-round pick for the Valkyries, and, barely made the club and actually was let go and then brought back. You got to be a little bit more resistant defensively there, and the Fever got to figure it out, and Stephanie White's got to figure it out if she's capable of doing so, because I think, she's got to answer some questions about what they're doing with this team. And the Valkyries now, they go to 1 game over 500. I think Natalie Nakaz as coach of the year, she's got to be the favorite right now to have an expansion team.
Unanimous.
And to have an expansion team, because I think there's a couple others that have done a good job. I mentioned Carl Semesco before the season with Atlanta, who has done a good job, but no expectations for Golden State in their first year, other than that they're going to sell a bunch of tickets because there's great fan interest in the Bay Area for this franchise. But they've been a lot better than I think people have thought, and showed it again today, 80-61, very dominant performance.
Oh, you think they've been better? Yeah, of course, man. They have 10 wins. Their win total coming into the year was 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
So they're 10-9 in the playoff mix. At Bet Rivers, their odds in terms of playoffs, yes, no, it's favored to be yes. It was 159, if I remember correctly, a couple days ago. So it's certainly minus money, but it was a good spot to bet the Valkyries. And you mentioned some things, Wes, like, yeah, expectations were higher for the Fever, but they didn't expect somebody who's, played in 185 straight games and hadn't missed a game since high school, but even missing this kind of time and played less than half the season. So the Fever have issues, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it's just been the in and out of the lineup with Caitlin Clark. So yes, they're underperforming in the literal sense of the word, but I think that comment would only 100% apply if they had this record and she had played every game.
Sure.
Like, I do think it's just the byproduct of moving parts, not playing up to snuff, to your point. But I think Boston's had a fantastic year. I think Mitchell's had a really good year. This was just a bad spot. Clark was in and out of the lineup, right? Not the normal substitution. They're figuring out what to do with McDonald. Clark missed a lot of shots as well. She didn't have the sort of the same aggression she normally plays with. And the Valkyries, when they're on point, they play well. And I think the league's changing, West. And Albert and I talked about it yesterday. The track and field 3-and-D players are weapons now. Tipton off the bench for Indiana's a really solid play. I think she can just grab the rim on a broad jump. She's got such ups. And the athleticism matters. People like Sabrina Ionescu, who are slow and heavy-footed, can't just run around and shoot threes because they're no longer playing defenses that have no clue what a back pick is and things like that. So Sabrina's still an all-star and a very good player, but the athleticism is playing a role, and we're seeing that with the Valkyries, with Valerie Burton, some of these others, with Fagbenle, and some others that are just the athleticism is palpable. And Nakase's been great, but these they can hoop, right? And you're going to have to beat them with a lot of effective basketball in the half court set, backdoor cuts, and everything, because the refs do call moving picks, they do call travel. So, which I love about the W. And I know the officiating needs to get better. It absolutely does. But I like that they call travels. I like that they call moving picks. And the quality of basketball that's now needed has been raised because the quality of the athleticism and the awareness, the ball awareness has gone up exponentially in the WNBA.
Well, and I agree with all of those points, but going back to the Fever here a little bit too, this is the time where they got to figure out what their identity is going to be. Is this going to be, we're going to be an up-tempo team? Because you saw kind of later in the season, the much maligned Christy Sides, the former Fever head coach, and I include myself in part of that offense was a lot better last year, and then they were a lot more fun to watch, and they were getting up and down the floor. So do you want to be that team, or do you want to play more of a slow down game? And I think that's hard to do with Clark. Now, they were able to do that winning the Commissioner's Cup against the Lynx, where the defense I thought was very good. So you've got to figure out how you want to play, and we're almost 20 games in, and I still think this club lacks a little bit of an identity, and still got a couple more games at home before they have the All-Star break, where the All-Star game is going to be in Indianapolis here in the middle of the month. Got to figure this out and see how you want to play here, as the Fever now sit at 9-10, kind of right on that Mendoza line halfway through the season of like 8-9 if you're going to make the playoffs or not.
Good points all around. We also had another matinee game, and wow, what a stunner. Storm, 17-point favorites, up 9 after 1. Albert said he liked the Connecticut Sun on the points. I said, oh, you can probably get a better game in line, which I did, which you could have after a 9-point deficit. And then at halftime, it was 8. And you're thinking, all right, the Sun playing with their food a little bit. It was 8 going into the fourth quarter. Okay, playing with their food. Looks like it's a good cover spot for Connecticut. And then how about 27-9 in favor of the Connecticut Sun? They win by 10 as 17-point underdogs, snapping their 10-game skid. So good for Connecticut. They've been trending in the right direction, and Seattle off monster wins, right? They go to New York and win outright as a 5-point dog. That's coming after essentially a buzzer beater win in Atlanta with Skylar Diggins having the game-winning layup. So huge wins, and now they got a ho-hum go to lowly Connecticut. Great spot to bet the Sun, but I did not expect a plus $1,200 cash on the money line.
Yeah, $9.50 at Bet Rivers, and even as high as what you just mentioned, some places 12-1 on this one. Sun were 2-17, now 3-17. And you mentioned with Seattle, get a win in Atlanta. They pull it out at the end. They beat the Liberty pretty handily over the weekend there, and we know Liberty's still without John Kell Jones, but still a nice win for Seattle. And just a random result. I guess you never know in this league, but the Sun, and it was Tina Charles, by the way, like turning back the clock here, like, she was 10 years younger. She was pretty dominant in this game, probably certainly her best game of the year. And we know this Sun team, by the way, short Marina Mabry, a couple others out. So very surprising result. Maybe not that they hang within the number, because I don't think it was necessary. You could maybe say the early start, but Seattle's been on the road. So they've been on
Right.
Eastern time. It was just an early morning tip off, 11 a.m. there in Connecticut. But yeah, the big underdog win for Connecticut. Tough loss for Seattle. They go 2-1 on the trip, which I think they would have probably taken before they took to the road from the Space
Right.
Needle. But I don't think they thought that one loss was going to be at Connecticut.
Well said. 2-1 going into the road trip, certainly desirable, but not after winning those first two. But um, Connecticut, Connecticut is interesting because they are incompetent without Marina Bravery, but some of the players are playing better of late. And I said this on the show yesterday with Albert. I before they were an automatic team total under play, but now it's like not so much. They have some competent basketball they're being played. But we turned the page to the other two games coming up later today, and one is in 20 minutes, bottom of the hour. The Mercury host the Minnesota Lynx. Phoenix coming off an absolute beatdown, and they crushed Dallas to avenge a victory. And Whitcomb went for like 30 something. I had the over on this show, over 12 and a half points, and she got there in 5 minutes. Uh, did not expect that kind of performance. But Kalea Copper, Satu Sabali, two of their three best players, both missed the last game. They still had a great performance. It was a revenge spot against the Wings. Now they're hosting the betting favorite, or one of the betting favorites to win it all. Lynx are 7-point favorites in Phoenix. For me, it's dog or pass. This is a tough spot for the Lynx. I think Mercury are pretty good, but I don't want to be influenced too much by the game on Monday. That was a great revenge spot, and obviously Whitcomb was on fire.
And against a Dallas team that obviously
Right.
is dreadful defensively and certainly shorthanded. We'll get to them in a moment with no Dejanay Carrington, Enrique Ogunbowale still out as well. So it was a kind of a ripe spot for Phoenix. Minnesota, by the way, has actually had a couple days off. Remember, they played like 5 games in 8 days, including that Commissioner's Cup game, and did pretty well. Did not cover against the Sky on Sunday, but were able to win. Were able to beat Golden State also before that on Thursday. So they've had a couple days. Now they take to the road. They've been the best team in the league, despite that Commissioner's Cup loss at 17-2. So I think the number is probably right. If I get involved in this game, though, do I want to fade Sammy Whitcomb off the career high, who you briefly mentioned there in passing? 36 points. She had 29, by the way, in the first half. So, sometimes I like to look at that. It's like, okay, if somebody has an outlier performance, and she's going to get more minutes too, with a couple down for the Mercury, but yeah, I would lean toward actually maybe fading that. I know that seems like it's a cookie at 12 and a half, but the Lynx are much better defensively. And they can slow the tempo a little bit. So they're not going to run like willy-nilly, kind of like Dallas does. So if I were to get involved in this game, because I think the spread is about right, I would certainly lean the underdog as well as you mentioned there a moment ago. But I would look maybe toward the under on Sammy Whitcomb points. And you have some alternate lines at Bet Rivers. So I think there's a 13.5 out there. I think over is plus 102. I can't see right in front of me what the opposite would be, but it's basically 12.5 in the market, slightly juiced to the under. So try to play what you can get. I think maybe this is a down game from somebody that scores 36.
Okay, so I'm going to go the other way, Wes, and I'm going to make it official. I'm going to play the over, and I'll go 13.5 plus 102. And the reason I played it on Monday is not because I knew she would have 29 in the first half. It's just I just think the usage is there. She's got some Marina Mabry competitiveness, so it's great. And Alyssa Thomas doesn't shoot much. And who else is going to score on this team? So she's just going to have like 20 shots. That's my issue. I didn't bet it the other day because I thought she was due to break out and have a monster performance. I just thought somebody's got to shoot a bunch, and she shoots such deep threes. And so the Wings defense wasn't particularly bad in that game. So I actually going to play Wickham over and make it official, and we can have a friendly, butting of the heads. But I agree with your regression normally, but this prop should be like 16.5. It really should. I thought it should have been the other day as well because of the usage and the interest that they have to run the ball through. It's why I've been on um, Zaya James for Dallas. Like she got off 20 shots. Now I barely got there. She made a three on her last shot that got to 15. It was over 14.5. But when all these players are out, the usage is there, and it's not like Alyssa Thomas is going to take over. So they're missing two Olympians, and AT is going to still be a rebounder and distributor, and maybe a little bit of a scorer in transition or around the paint. But Whitcomb's got to step up, and she did. And I think the shot volume will be there. To your point, Minnesota's better defensively, but I just think this is just, 5 for 20 kind of shooting with some free throws and some threes.
Well, Minnesota is also healthy too. All five of their starters. I know Alana Smith has been battling, some nagging injuries, but still, that starting five I think is the best in the league. And now you've got a Whitcomb who is, in an unfamiliar role that's starting. So I understand based on the usage here, but I'm going to trust the market here. I would lean certainly under 12.5, certainly under 13.5. You got to pay a little extra at Bet Rivers to get that extra point. But yeah, it's tough for me to like back at I think the peak of the market, and that's where I think maybe I have a differing philosophy. I get a little nervous about that, and plus the fact that the Lynx are certainly getting the support in the market, where you're seeing even as high as 7.5 now emerging. The under has gone down from 163.5 to about 160.5, pretty much market wide.
That I agree with.
Include
That I agree with.
including at Bet Rivers. So when you say who's going to score, you're right, but maybe nobody's going to score because I think that they're against a really good defensive team here.
You bring up another point I think it'd be good to share with our audience, because you and I were texting about this on Sunday. You bring up the market, and I pushed back a little bit. I said, you're sharper than any sharp, quote unquote, out there in the W, because what happens is, and the reason the NFL is such an advanced and competitive line, and the reason the books have the highest limits for the NFL is the amount of syndicates and computerized wagering and modeling that goes into the NFL projections and those bets. So when bets come in, they use those, meaning odds makers and sports books, use the bets of flagged accounts, high profile accounts, to move the number so they feel like they have a good 50-50 sort of simulation of a game. But those syndicates are not involved in the WNBA market. Not all of them are gone, but most of them are out because the limits are so low, it's not worth the time of these betting groups and things like that to get too involved in the W. On top of that, they're certainly not involved in props. So does that mean there's no sharp money in the prop market in the W? Of course there is sharp money, but Wes, I would say respect the market always, no matter the sport. But I do think it's okay to go against the market. And this is what I was telling you for our Angel Reese bet on Sunday. Yes, it's the absolute peak of the market, but it wasn't, because the next game today, her juice is higher on her 13.5 rebounds prop. So it's good to flush it out. It's good to understand. Don't be at the mercy of the market, but definitely respect it. But I do agree that you probably know just as much as anyone in the W. And so I wouldn't be too scared off if you're opposite the market or you're just tailing or things like that.
I think it's a lot of it is just we all as bettors kind of have habits, right? And we all have tendencies or certain philosophies where you know when you pay attention to market, because that's what you're doing. And look, there's more volume in the market with NFL, college football, so something like that, a move against you kind of is like, okay, even though you could sometimes beat it, it feels like, oh my god, disaster. And maybe to your point, not so much in the WNBA because it is a smaller market, even though you do have sharp syndicates or individual bettors for that matter in the market. So yeah, I did get a little nervous, and it was a slow start for Reese, and then it's somehow like, what are we worried about? She went way over 13.5. We'll see if she has the opportunity to do that tonight.
All right, cool. So I mentioned the Wings Sky game. We have a change in favorite. Dallas now a road favorite in the Windy City. Couple lineup reports. Camilo Cardoso, the starting center for Chicago, will be back after playing for Brazil at the America's Cup. And Sky had been playing small ball, and also Angel Reese listed as questionable. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with her smacking up the clipboard yesterday, but Angel 15 plus rebounds in 6 straight games or something ridiculous. She's been on a tear, but Wings haven't necessarily been winning all of them. The over-under is 166.5. Again, Angel questionable. I'm holding the powder, but if she's ruled out, I'm hammering the
Well,
wings. She is so valuable to the Sky, in my opinion.
I already made a bet before the she showed up on the injury report at Sky Pick, just because they've been competitive and they've been so close to getting a win. They haven't had a lot of wins this year, but Angel plus I think the whole team has really played better, even though you see them at 5-13. If you look at really how they finished June, they get the win over the Sparks. Then they go to Golden State, do cover, only lose by 5. They beat the Sparks on the road again, then have a few days off. Nice effort against Minnesota on Sunday, where it looked like, okay, maybe they get blown out second half and they only lose by 5. And then the game yesterday where they lose by 2 in Washington. Reese, by the way, 12 of 15 from the line yesterday. So it's being reported as a leg. I don't think it's a hand from her smacking that clipboard. Of course, that clip that went viral, it got announced that she was on the cover of this new video game that's out. So she's been getting a lot of praise, and rightfully so. She has been playing better. She's not solely relying on athleticism and like brute force, where it's like, oh God, I get the rebound and I got to take it up over 3 defenders. And we've seen those sequences and those videos circulate on social media. Now it's like, okay, I see a double team coming and she passes it out. I was actually, before we did this program, I was on a spot with our buddy Jimmy Ott down at ESPN affiliate in Baton Rouge. And he had former LSU quarterback Rohan Davey, also former NFL quarterback with the Patriots. And Rohan, I thought, made a really good point because he follows this. He's an LSU guy and obviously a fan of Angel Reese. And he says, it seems like the game is slowing down for her. And I thought that was
Yeah.
a really great point that Rohan made, where she is not rushing things. Like, she's seeing the defense, she's seeing a double team, and she's passing it out. And when you can trust your shooters, when Ariel Atkins or the Sky guards can actually make shots, that obviously makes it, her be more willing to pass out. But her assists have gone up, her rebounds are still there. The shooting percentages have started to stabilize a little bit. They're not all great shooting games, but you're not seeing those like 3 or 4 teens anymore. And I think she has been playing better. We're seeing some movement with Cardoso being back on Elizabeth Williams. Some of her props going down, but I think Reese has actually been better with Elizabeth Williams in the starting lineup.
I think Cardoso stinks. I've said it. I think they should trade her. I think they should go small ball. The league, as I was saying a second ago, is shifting towards Cardoso is not unplayable, but she disrupts things that the Sky do really well. I would trade her. I really would.
Yeah, look, I think Cardoso has something, but I don't know if it fits with the Chicago Sky. I don't know if it fits with this personnel. I think she can develop into somebody really, really good. And obviously you can't teach size as coach size, as Coach Wooden often said. But yeah, I think the Sky, I really like how they have been playing. And I think they're a team that I don't know what their ceiling is, Doug. I still think that they're going to be borderline to make the playoffs. Certainly the odds are against them, but I think they're going to keep getting better the second half of the season. Once Coach Marsh kind of figures out, okay, what is my personnel? That's kind of what we talked about with Stephanie White with the Fever. It takes a little while for certain teams to figure it out. Like, it doesn't take long for the Lynx to figure it out because they're the same team, basically. Same coach, same starting lineup, same structure.
Right.
That were in the WNBA finals. So everybody has different curves when you get into a new season. I often think it with the NBA, which I know you bet pretty regularly, it takes 25 or 30 games for your average NBA team to kind of say, okay, what are we? What is our identity? What are we going to be? And for some, it takes longer if there are like trades or injuries or something happens. So the Sky are a team, I don't want to say like they're okay, buy all the stock you can now, but maybe tip your toe in the market a little bit on this team for the second half of the season. I'm on a bad number. Hopefully Angel Reese goes tonight. The numbers are certainly shot to the moon with how she's been playing, so I'm not going to get involved in the prop market, but I will see if it's looking like it's a no-go, then I may have to just buy out and drink the juice. But as of now, I'm on the Sky. Pick them.
I've never heard, which makes so much more sense. I always say eat the juice, but you're right. It's drink the juice. You don't eat
Yes.
juice. You drink it. So I'm an idiot for saying that for so many years, but I just the eat comes from just eating it, like you said. Like sometimes you just have to take it on the chin and eat it and live to fight another day. Let me ask you this: what would be a bet in a vacuum if you didn't have a pre-flop sky bet already? If Angels ruled out, the line goes to like 2.5 or something.
I still think, three or less, or kind of in that 1.5 to 2.5 range might be a Wings money line, perhaps here, because they come off a bad night, obviously, in Phoenix, and Paige Beckers did not have her best game, certainly, and now there's a lot more responsibility on her without Enrique, without Dejanay Carrington. Now teams can totally game plan for you. And it was a rough spot, against albeit a shorthanded Phoenix team, a team that does have a lot of talent. So, the Wings, look, they're a tough go to want to back them as a road favorite, because this is a team that I just think they're young and they have a first year head coach, so it's going to be longer for them to figure it out than it will be for a veteran team. So I'm sticking with what I got right now on the sky to pick. That obviously at Bet Rivers now you can take +1 if you certainly believe that Angel is going to go tonight.
I'm tempted to play some Bantam props because she's in the starting lineup now. She's definitely showing more initiative with her threes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she's good, man.
She's been making
So
shots too, and that's why maybe Angel was willing to pass out to her. Same with Ariel Atkins, who they didn't really use right early in the season. I think she's, they're kind of starting to figure out what to do with her.
I agree. So that's how I would look, but I would really like the Wings as a road favorite here. Um, if they're able to, if Angel's out, I think she's really good. I really do. And in terms of some of the other players, like you got to keep an eye on it. It's just really tough if she's out because she's such a big impact to the game. She fills up the stat sheet. You saw the PRA prop was 34.5 just on your screen a moment ago. So that's a huge impact. And there it is, -113. That's how much she impacts a game. I mean, she's got her hands on everything, right? From her assists, and we're like at 6 the other day. She was, I think, 4 in her last game, and double digits, 15 and 15 in a lot of ways. And you mentioned the free throws, right? It's worth mentioning. After Sunday's loss, she complained about the officiating. The video showed she was right, and then sure enough, she shoots 15 free throws in the next game,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a thing. So we have to pay attention to narratives in the betting world. And the referee, now the officiating in that game was so bad, but meaning there were calls against the Wings too, or against the Sky as well. But referees are aware and they're going to cave. So if you maybe see that live overs or something like that, you can get involved in. That's certainly something to consider. All right, let's shift to the NBA Summer League. And just a reminder, we mentioned on the show yesterday, awesome job by the audience and everyone behind the scenes. The Bet Rivers channel on YouTube reached 10,000 subscribers. So
Thank you all.
awesome milestone mark. So let's keep it going. That's the currency we have in the YouTube world. So please like and subscribe. That is what it takes. And also the newsletters, really good content, 30 pages plus, breakdowns of games, of tennis matches, soccer. You got all links to all the podcasts here on the Bet Rivers Network. Also the Bet Rivers odds, futures, really good stuff. Go sign up for free. bettingweeklystudios.com. And we are Monday through Friday here, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on the Bet Rivers Network. We're also going to have Betting Weekly Hardball, our baseball show. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We'll be going throughout the week, both shows. And then next week, obviously, a little bit of a break with the All-Star game for hardball. But 7 Summer League games today. And yesterday, I took an L. It happened. I was on what I thought maybe proved to be the difference. Memphis -1.5. But then numerous guys got ruled out, like 4 of their best players. And they ended up losing by 1. But Philly gets the win. Now the line went from -1.5 Memphis to Philly -2.5, I want to say. So a significant line move with late scratches. We know Edgecombe's got a thumb thing. But Memphis, man, if they had all their guys like Cam Spencer, GG Jackson, uh, just Jalen Wells, it's just so painful to have that bet. So no plays for me as of now as we talk through a couple games. But Wes, you're price sensitive, but nothing more important than being lineup sensitive. especially in a game like a summer league game.
Yeah, and the summer league games, by the way, 7 tomorrow in Las Vegas at 2 different venues too. Some are in the Thomas and Mack, some are in the Cox Pavilion, which is the smaller arena over there on the campus of UNLV. So that's something to take in mind. You know, I don't know if there are any like trends, if they're high scoring in the smaller building or in the bigger building. I'll admit I don't bet a ton of summer league. I'll follow guys like you that are more into it, just for something to kind of bet on, something to get me interested here in a little bit of the dog days of summer with not as much inventory. But yeah, I think you do got to be lineup sensitive, and plus some of these guys, like you mentioned with BJ Edgecombe, who was playing because they had some games in Utah and they had some games in California, but before they have the big show here in Vegas. Some of these guys that are the higher draft picks, like for Cooper Flag for Dallas, I don't think you're going to see him play more than 1 or 2 games. And maybe just one is the limit. They're not gonna say, okay, we're going to play every game, because what's the minimum amount of games you get in the summer league? I don't think they're doing the tournament thing anymore where they seeded them by their record. I'm not sure. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but you're at least playing for a team. You're at least playing like 5 games. These are for the guys that are trying to make the ball club and trying to make the training camp here. Maybe either the team they're on or maybe somebody else sees something in them. And that's what it is. These lottery guys, man, they're going to play like 1 game and that's pretty much it. So, when you're thinking about if you're getting involved in like the summer league futures market or something like that, consider the fact that you might want to look at teams that are not as heavy with like a high ticket lottery pick that everybody wants to see. And then you see him once and then he's done for the rest of the trip here in Vegas.
That's a really good point. The futures market does have opportunities. Let me put it this way. The favorite doesn't always win, right? In the NBA and the playoffs, like we kind of know who's going to be good. Like we know the Thunder are going to be good, but there are breakout stars in the summer league and teams that are favored coming in. It's really hard for odds makers because Cooper Flag is a minus money favorite to win Rookie of the Year this coming regular season. But to Wes's point, he's only going to play a little
He's
bit.
going to play like 20 minutes.
Yeah, or maybe just 1 game too. He might play 2, but this guy's expected to be a starter, and they're not messing around with him. And he's played with the Team USA Select and things like that. But with that being said, sometimes there's a stud college guy who maybe didn't get drafted high because he was a 4-year starter, and he doesn't have the upside, but immediate impact is there. And so maybe like Connect. I'm trying to remember how Dalton Connect played last year, but that's a perfect example of a type of guy who may not be NBA high value for the future and things like that. And that's why the Lakers already tried to trade him once. But in the summer league and his polished game, he's a guy and a team you want to bet on because his game is all that matters in the futures market and the even game to game is right now.
Mm-hmm.
How good are these teams? So teams that, and then like I said, there's always going to be a Jeremy Lin breakout star. So keep an eye on things. You're going to find value. I was texting with an odds maker yesterday who bets the kind of randomness a lot. He's bet summer league in the past. He's bet preseason in the past. He always has the best number ahead of a market move. And he said, I haven't bet preseason yet. So it's really tough with a lot of these late lineup changes. I'm 0-2. Albert had a really nice under yesterday when he knew guys would be out. Stone under. So well done there. Wes, you mentioned Las Vegas Summer League gets going tomorrow. We have some other situations, just developing. So it's a travel day, so to speak, in the Summer League. But it's good to talk about this stuff. But you're right about the futures market. That is really a strong angle that you can pounce on. So
and
something to keep in mind.
One other point I want to make on this before we go, keep in mind these limits are low. So it is not going to take a lot of money or a lot of big bets to move these numbers. And they're all lineups like you mentioned here. So that's where you want to be monitoring whether you're betting at, here with us at Bet Rivers or not. That's when you want to kind of monitor the market and look at some of the other shops and see where these numbers are moving. And you got to be quick on the draw because they're going to move instantly, on very little money. So if you play in that game, you just got to be on top of it and you got to know the lineups here, I think, if you're going to get involved with this at all.
I would agree. And they are underway in Phoenix. And I think you're right about the Phoenix. They had all these shots that were I don't know, available in the last game that may not be available now. So that's something to keep in mind because they are facing actually a competent defense now. So 5-0 start for um, Minnesota. So that got me thinking. So you're right on that regard in a lot of ways. I wanted to ask you this, and it's really tough because the Lynx are playing right now, but they also play tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, right when we're on the air, right when the show starts. So, any early thoughts to the Lynx visiting the Sparks in LA tomorrow? There's no line, but the game's going to start when we're coming on air tomorrow.
Sparks off a win on Saturday. They did win against the Fever. Have actually beaten the Fever twice now in Indianapolis. So look, this team is another team still trying to figure it out. They want to go up and down, and that could be a little bit of a tougher matchup for Minnesota. Minnesota is not a team as much firepower as they have with Fee and with Courtney Williams, who both made the WNBA All-Star team, now coached by their coach Cheryl Reeve, as we had a coaching trade yesterday there. So yeah, the Lynx, look, they are a little bit more half court oriented. That doesn't mean they won't go in transition, but they're not a team that wants to get up and down the floor. And some of these athletic teams, these younger teams, can kind of hang with them. They don't have the experience necessarily to beat them down the stretch because you're going to trust a team with some championship pedigree. But this could be a closer game. I don't see any lineup right now, but that is Lynx Sparks, and then of course Aces Mystics nothing up because Aja Wilson went down with that wrist injury in the first half last night in the loss against the Liberty. So man, Caitlin Clark, two of her starters, by the way, on Team Clark for the WNBA All-Star game, Satu Sabali and now Aja Wilson down with injuries. So gonna have to get a hardship maybe to see if one of those players do not end up going in about a week and a half. But would lean a little bit Sparks. I'd have to, of course, see the number tomorrow.
Yeah, and see how this game plays out here in Phoenix. But, as soon as you mentioned, I think team total first half would have been a smart play. Just, you can name your score. You're coming off it. You're feeling yourselves. I think they'll end up figuring it out and play hard. But to your point, like that initial shock of playing a Lynx team that did not play well in its last game. So I should have been sharper about thinking about the spot. And a lot of times we can have an angle on a game, and it's better just to isolate it to the first 10 minutes. You can bet first to 20, first to 30, first to 40, and really capitalize on what you think would be a really strong edge in terms of a team's inability to pick up where they left off in the last game. So maybe not fade Whitcomb, but fade them first quarter, the team, whatever. Bet the Lynx first quarter because they're certainly off to a strong start. Any live bets? We got the live options here. That's always fun. Should we do a live bet on the first quarter? It's 9-2.
Let's see where we are here. What is the current number? As my screen's still
Uh,
loading up.
so it's -8, -132 at Bet Rivers. The over/under is 38.5. I was looking at that. Don't see a team total. It's tough when there's only 2 points scored for a team. I mean, they should have some regression, but yeah, nothing jumping out. You have to kind of wait for a stoppage, and I
Yeah.
don't think there is one right now. So that makes it
Yeah,
really
I was
difficult.
trying to see where the total went down to for the game, 157 and a half. So a little bit down from where we are at 160 and a half. That certainly got some market support. If I were to get involved, that's where I would lean because I think that this could maybe be one of those games where the Lynx just get out ahead and then it kind of
Right.
dies a little bit. Maybe you
153 and a half.
yeah, maybe you have Phoenix kind of wave the white flag early in the fourth quarter if they're down 18 with like 6 or 7 to go or something like that. Certainly saw that a little bit in the Fever game today against Golden State, but that'd be probably the way I would look, but nothing for me.
Right. I'm gonna do a same game parlay. I'm gonna put the money line on there. I think they run away with this. Uh looking at one -104. So under 151 and a half and Minnesota money line -104. We'll make that an official play for the game. And again, you take a -120 down to -104. I just don't see how the game goes. The game stays under and the Mercury win.
Right.
Now remember, in the commission, there was a game where the Lynx got outscored 18-2 or something in the second
Hmm.
quarter by the Fever. But aside from that, I think they're connected. So yeah, the Lynx keeps climbing the money line. So we'll do that. Yeah, -102 on the under. In that regard. So 151 and a half, and we're good there. So Yeah, man, the Phoenix can't score, which is good, which is what we want. So 9-4 early. All right, Wes, you're back on the show, the baseball show tomorrow, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that with Adam the Bull. That's betting weekly hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Sarah is hosting tomorrow right here on Betting Weekly Fast Break, and I'll be back on Fast Break on Friday. So good luck to everyone out there. For Wes Reynolds, everyone else behind the scenes, we appreciate all what you do, and we will be back here tomorrow.